Good afternoon. Today we will learn about the drugs which act as a skeletal muscle relaxants. Skeletal muscle relaxants, these are the agents which are used either to relax or to completely paralyze the skeletal muscles. Why they are needed? Many times in therapeutics, while giving general anesthesia and the artificial respiration, we want to paralyze the diaphragm so that the good aeration should be possible. Here, the muscle relaxants, they are really helpful. There are many painful muscle conditions like spasticity, spasm. We require this type of drug. To understand how these drugs act and where these drugs act, we know that the muscles, they contract because there is an impulse into the motor cortex which comes down through spinal cord to neuromuscular junction and to muscle cells. Any break in this system may produce the paralysis of muscle. In therapeutics, the drugs which act as a neuromuscular junction, they are helpful, and we will focus with the drugs which act on a neuromuscular junction. To understand how the muscle contract, one should learn about the physiology of muscle contraction. This is the more simplified diagram where you can see that number 1 is the axonal terminal. When it comes in contact with a muscle fiber, it forms an end organ where the axonal terminal is in contact with the muscle end plate. So presynaptic terminal is in just contact with the sarcolemma, and the gap in between these two is called as the synaptic cleft. In the axonal terminal, there are synaptic vesicles which contain acetylcholine as a stored molecule, and these acetylcholine molecules, they are released whenever the action potential comes from the axon to the axonal terminal. Then in the muscle, of course, there are the myofibrils and the mitochondria, and on the sarcolemmal membrane, there are receptors. These receptors, they are the receptors for acetylcholine, and these receptors are nicotinic in nature. They are called as the nicotinic skeletal-muscular receptors. Now, to see the functions of this, we will go little bit detail as far as this physiology is concerned. Now you can see that these are the structure of nicotinic receptors. Nicotinic receptors, they are present on the muscle fiber, that is the muscle end plate, in the autonomic ganglia, and in the central nervous system. These nicotinic receptors, the natural ligand is acetylcholine. It has been observed, and now with a complete gene mapping, the structure of nicotine receptor is a pentameric structure. It consists of the 5 subunits, 2 alpha subunits, 1 beta, one delta, and one gamma subunit. And this nicotinic receptor is spanning over the cell membrane. Some part is outside, some part is intracellular. This is the closed channel. Whenever the acetylcholine, which is a natural ligand for the nicotinic receptors, combine with this receptor, and where it will combine, of course, there are special sites in between the grooves or the cleft of alpha, beta, and alpha delta. Whenever the two molecules of acetylcholine will combine at this site, then this receptor gets a conformational change. It opens and the canal is open. There occurs an entry of sodium and potassium and calcium inside the cell, while potassium goes out of the cell. This is a more simplified form where you can see that the acetylcholine molecule, which are released in thousands of number whenever there occurs an impulse at axonal terminal, these acetylcholine molecule combine with these receptors and they will open the channel for the ionic transfer. Still, detail if you can see that at axonal terminal, why the acetylcholine is poured out? Because once the stimulus come from axon to axon terminal, the calcium channels, they get activated. More calcium come in. The synaptic vesicles, they fuse with the terminal membrane and the acetylcholine is poured into the synaptic cleft. This acetylcholine is very fastly metabolized or destroyed by two ways. First, there are huge amount of acetylcholine esterase receptors present into this type of cleft at a neuromuscular junction. As they are enormous in amount, they destroy fastly acetylcholine, and that's why the action of acetylcholine is short. Another way, this small molecule of acetylcholine may get diffused and further they are broken down by the plasma esterases, and that's why the action of acetylcholine is in nano or millisecond. You can see that these acetylcholine molecules, once they are released into the synaptic cleft, they combine with the receptor at two sites. Two molecules of acetylcholine must attach with the nicotinic receptors at alpha delta and alpha beta subregion. Once they attach, the channel is open and the ionic transfer occurs. Suppose only one molecule of acetylcholine combined with, say, alpha unit, the channel may not open and there will not be any muscle contraction. Once this channel is open, what happens? Because of opening of channel, sodium goes in, potassium goes out, and electrical current or electrical gradient is generated, which produces a small eddy type of current. And this current convert the electrical energy now to the mechanical energy at a muscle fiber. You can see that there occurs a depolarization, that is the negative side is changing to the positive one. And if the small current, they get added, a larger current is generated, which may depolarize the muscular membrane. And this is called as the generation of muscle end potential. This muscle end potential is responsible for the contraction to occur in between the actin and the myofibril. With this physiology, now we are having the drugs in our hand which can relax the muscle. There are two types of drug. One is the neuromuscular blockers, which block the nicotinic receptors at peripheral site. And another group of the drug, they are called as the spasmolytics. They reduce the spasticity and they act centrally. This is the classification for the muscle relaxants. The neuromuscular blocking agents which act peripherally, they are again of two types. First one, they are called as the non-depolarizing blockers. They are also called as a competitive neuromuscular blocker, while the another group is called as the depolarizing blocker, or they are the non-competitive neuromuscular blocker. The competitive neuromuscular blockers, depending on their duration of action, long-acting, intermediate-acting, short-acting. D-tubocurarine, pancuronium, doxacurium, pipecuronium, they are the long-acting. Vecuronium, atracurium, cisatracurium, rocuronium, rapacuronium, they are the intermediate-acting for about 25 to 35 minutes. And the short-acting mivacurium is acting for about 5 to 10 minutes. While the non-competitive or the depolarizing blockers, the succinylcholine is only therapeutically used. It is very fast acting. The action remains for about 5 minutes. Action starts within 1 to 1.5 minutes. If you see the nomenclature of this drug, non-depolarizing agent, you will see that the curium, they are the drugs from curium families, tubocurarine, pancuronium, doxacurium, pipecuronium, vecuronium. So curonium families, they belong to skeletal muscle relaxants. Like other nomenclature like propranolol, they are the beta blocker, metoprolol, acebutolol, etc. Then xylocaine, procaine, prilocaine, they are the local anesthetic. Similarly, curonium family, they belong to the skeletal muscle relaxants. If you see the chemical structure of this drug, it is observed that chemically, they either represent the structure of acetylcholine or there might be a hidden structure of acetylcholine into their molecule. For example, you see the pancuronium, the red one is showing the tertiary quaternary nitrogen atom, which is similar to that of the acetylcholine. This succinylcholine, it is nothing but the two molecules of acetylcholine, they are joined in a linear way. Thus, the quaternary nitrogen atom is able to combine with a negatively charged space at the subunit of the nicotine receptors. Similarly, with decamethonium and the tubocurarine and all other drugs. So this type of structure allows them to combine with the nicotinic receptors because there is a structural similarity. But the thing is that they are not very similar to acetylcholine. They are not exactly as that of the acetylcholine, but there is some change. What is the change? You can see that acetylcholine is a very small, slender molecule. While all other neuromuscular blockers, you see the tubocurarine, decamethonium, pancuronium, structure of the vecuronium, they are quite bulky. They are thick molecule. They are having the affinity towards the receptors, but they don't have the intrinsic activity. They combine with the receptors and they are released from the receptors very slowly. As they are the obese molecule, they are not easily removed from their ligand binding site. In contrast to this, acetylcholine, very small, slender molecule, easily removed by the acetylcholine esterase. What is the mechanism of action of this drug? All the neuromuscular blocking agents, they either act or mimic the action of acetylcholine. They compete with acetylcholine at the nicotinic binding site, and that's why they block the receptor site. As they are not having any intrinsic activity, they do not depolarize the motor end plate, and thus they act as a competitive antagonist, and the excessive concentration may produce the even channel blockade. As these are the drugs which act on the nicotinic receptors, there are some nicotinic receptors at a presynaptic site. If it is blocked, then further release of acetylcholine from the presynapse is also prevented. And all this lead to non-generation of muscle action potential, and the muscle do not contract, muscle get paralyzed. The very important drug from the curarine or the curonium family is the D-tubocurarine. This acts as a prototype drug. If we want to learn with this drug, one should know about the history of this drug. It is said that the D-tubocurarine is having a romantic type of history. It is the drug, quite ancient drug, used by the South American Indians or the persons from the Amazon region to kill the animal. They are using this drug as an arrow poison. They were extracting this drug from the variety of plants as a resin, a brownish dark colored compound, and this resin can be obtained from the different shrubs. It was observed by the scientists that these are the persons, they are killing the animal with this resin. Let us examine them. They have obtained the pure form of the resins, transported to the Europe. Variety of studies has been carried out, and the active alkaloid is obtained, that is the tubocurarine, and in that it is observed that the D isomer, dextroisomer, is found to be more potent than the levo isomer. It was called or labeled as a tubocurarine because this curar is a generic term for the resins which can be obtained from this type of plant, and usually this curar compound was kept in a bamboo-like structure and was used as an arrow poison, and that's why the name is D-tubocurarine. How this drug act? What are the pharmacological actions of this drug? The first pharmacological action is, of course, on the skeletal muscle. They produce the complete paralysis of the skeletal muscle by acting as a competitive antagonist to the acetylcholine. Because of the paralysis of the muscle, some body functions may get disturbed. For example, we lost the tone if you exposed with this type of drug. Secondly, the skeletal muscles, they are very important as far as the respiration is concerned. One can see that there is a hierarchy while paralyzing these skeletal muscles. Usually these drugs, they are given by intravenous injections, may be given intramuscularly, but they are not given orally because they are the quaternary type of ammonium compound. They are not absorbed from the stomach. They are very much water soluble and they do not cross the blood-brain barrier. They do not cross the placenta And that's why mainly these drugs, they are having a short distribution. Half-life is also quite short with this drug. When these drugs block the nicotinic receptors, they paralyze the skeletal muscles in a serial, or you can say a hierarchy manner. For example, not all the muscles, they are paralyzed immediately. Once we give the drug, initially the muscles of the eyes, extraocular muscles, muscles of the fingers, then muscles of the hand, foot, leg, arm, then trunk, they are paralyzed. And lastly, the intercostal muscles and the diaphragm will be paralyzed. And whenever we stop the drug, or whenever the action of the drug is stopped, the recovery occurs in a exactly reverse order. The diaphragm initially regains the contraction and the respiration may resume. And finally, there will be the control of the eye muscles and the muscles of the fingers. So this is the first action that they cause the skeletal muscle relaxation. Second action is that these are the drugs which produces the histamine release. They act on the mast cell and releases the histamine. And because of that, they may produce the shock-like condition, or there might be hypotension. Then these are the drugs which, as they act on the autonomic ganglia also, because the nicotinic receptors, they are also present on the autonomic ganglia. And we know the adrenal gland is a type of autonomic gland where if it is stimulated, the adrenaline will be poured. So here also they block the secretions of adrenaline and further hypotension is possible. Another important action about the hypotension is that as the skeletal muscles, they are completely relaxed, the vascular tree may accommodate more blood, and that's why blood coming to the heart will be decreased, the cardiac output will be decreased, and further there will be fall in the blood pressure. Then these are the drugs which are also having some adverse effect. Their pharmacological actions, they may act, or they may be the adverse effect, because we don't need many times the complete paralysis of the respiratory muscles, because it will produce the hypoxia. The release of histamine from the mast cell will produce a severe allergic type of reactions. The hypotension, of course, may produce the catastrophe. And as the muscles, they are well relaxed, the gastric juice from the stomach may come into the oropharynx and may get into the tracheobronchial tree, and it may produce the complication. Now, as compared to this D-tibocurarine, there are better drugs that are available. In practice nowadays, we don't use the D-tibocurarine because of these important side effects. We are using these few drugs, for example, pancuronium. It is quite longer acting, 60 to 90 minutes, quite potent. As it is potent, the action also takes some time. For example, 3 to 5 minutes for the start of action. This drug is eliminated by kidney 85% and from liver 15%. And because of that, it is having a longer effect. It is observed that the drugs which are mainly excreted by the liver, they are having a short half-life, while drugs which are excreted by kidney, mainly kidney, they are having a longer half-life. pancuronium may stimulate the nicotinic receptors because of the structural similarity, it may stimulate the vagal nuclei because they are nicotinic in nature. And initially, because of the mimicking action of acetylcholine, it may stimulate the adrenal gland. The adrenaline is poured, it may produce the hypertension, tachycardia, and the dysrhythmia. This pancuronium, as it is longer acting, is quite useful for the ventilator. It assists in a ventilation for proper oxygenation. Many times we need a drug of intermediate duration of action, 20 to 35 minutes. Here, the vecuronium is the analog, which is quite useful. It is having less vagolytic effect, and that's why less tachycardia, shorter duration than pancuronium, and 40% eliminated by the kidney and 60% by the liver, and that's why the intermediate action is obtained by vecuronium. Another important thing with vecuronium is that it keeps the cardiovascular system quite stable. Chances of hypotension, chances of the histamine release from the mast cell, they are less, and the reversibility is also good with vecuronium. Another drug is the atracurium. It is having a peculiarity that it is an intermediate acting drug metabolized by the esterases compound, and very important property is the Hoffman elimination. This drug is metabolized or converted into its metabolites of its own. There occurs a molecular rearrangement when the drug is present into the plasma itself. And that's why some drug is metabolized of its own without the help of any other organ. And this is helpful in many conditions where there is a renal or the hepatic damage. Of course, side effects are there. It releases the histamine, it produces the tachycardia, it produces the bronchospasm, and that's why it is not very preferred drug. Another is the metabolite of atracurium. Whenever it is metabolized into the liver, a metabolite is produced called as a laudanosine, and it is lipid soluble. It may go to the central nervous system. It may produce the convulsions. Another isomer of atracurium is the cis-atracurium, having the same property as that of the Hoffman elimination, intermediate duration, but the cardiovascular side effects are less because the histamine release potency is less, and very few quantity or small quantity of the laudanosine is produced, and that's why convulsions is not the adverse effect with cis-atracurium. Another drug is the rocuronium. This rocuronium is having a rapid onset of action like that of the succinylcholine within 1 to 2 minutes, and action is for about 20 to 35 minutes. It is mainly used for the intubation in elderly person where we don't want to compromise with the respiration. Though it is a less potent drug, but still it is helpful for the short procedures. Mivacuronium is again a short-acting drug, mainly metabolized by the liver, quite potent, and the action remains for about 20 to 35 minutes. Whenever we use this type of drug, they are having a very potent effect. There is a very sharp age effect to this drug. And that's why their doses, their duration, and the use in a particular patient should be well learned so that the respiration should not be hampered. And that's why the minute things, they should be kept in mind, that which are the conditions which can alter the responses. For example, the increased temperature, altered acid-base balance, altered electrolytes, hyperkalemia, the extremes of age, liver and the kidney diseases, variety of the drugs which are given simultaneously, they may produce the, or they may synergize with the effect of the drug. And that's why one should be cautious. For example, there are some variety of neurological diseases. Already the muscles are paralyzed condition. And if you are using this drug, the additive effect may occur. Similarly, in myasthenia gravis, myasthenic syndrome, already muscle strength is quite less. And that's why the drug may produce the excessive paralysis. Some inhaled anesthetics like halothane, ether, isoflurane, they will add on to the paralysis of skeletal muscles. The aminoglycosides, particularly the streptomycin, may cause the decreased release of the acetylcholine and will act as a add-on effect. The local anesthetics, of course, they will block the neuromuscular impulse transmission, and they will also produce the excessive paralysis into the skeletal muscle. Some antibiotics, anticonvulsants, magnesiums, salt, they can also have a synergistic effect. Now, once we obtain the muscle relaxation completely, then there are some situation. For example, either the procedure has been completed. Now, we want to reverse the neuromuscular blockage so as the patient should have its own respiration. At that time, one can reverse the effect of this drug by using the choline esterase inhibitors such as neostigmine, pyridostigmine. Now, there is another category of the drug which can relax the skeletal muscle. They are called as a depolarizing agent, or they are called as a non-competitive skeletal muscle relaxant. Here, the very important drug is the succinylcholine. Succinylcholine, as I have said, resembles that of the acetylcholine. Two molecules of acetylcholine, they are arranged linearly and quite small structure, and that's why it is also referred as a leptocurar compound. While the tubocurarine is called as the, it is also a curar compound, but it is called as a pachycurar. That means obese compound. It acts as acetylcholine receptor agonist, not the antagonist, but it acts as a acetylcholine receptor agonist, but not pure agonist, but it is a partial agonist. And that's why it is having the affinity towards the acetylcholine receptors, but it do not produces the complete response. Intermediate response is produced, and this response is prolonged one. Why? Because the succinylcholine is removed from the nicotinic receptors very slowly, because it is metabolized only by the pseudocholinesterase in plasma. And because of that, the drug remains for a prolonged time in contact with the receptors, and thus the action is quite prolonged. Because of excessive prolonged depolarized action, what happens? The muscle initially contract, which is seen as a fasciculation. Now, once muscle is contract, for some time, it is resistant for the next stimuli. Whenever the next stimuli falls in a time slot, which is quite resistant for the contraction to occur, the next contraction is not possible because the muscle end potential is not generated, and this produces a continuous bombarding of the impulse attacking on the neuromuscular plate, and because of that, the muscle remain in a continuous depolarized form. And that's why initially there is a fasciculation, and later on there occurs a complete paralysis of the muscle. So there are some differences in between the neuromuscular blocker with D-tuberculin and with succinylcholine. You can see that with the non-competitive blockers, that is there occurs a flaccid paralysis, while with succinylcholine there occurs a initial fasciculation and later on changes to the complete flaccid paralysis. And because of this, some changes into their physiological action and the pharmacological action, we can decide that which type of skeletal muscle blocker should be used. Mainly, not only on the time duration of action, but also the reversibility, which is quite high as far as the succinylcholine is concerned. With succinylcholine, some other side effects are peculiar. For example, it produces the cardiac arrest. Why? Because the succinylcholine, whenever it acts on the muscle plate, it produces excessive pouring of the potassium out of the muscle fiber. And that's why there occurs a hyperkalemia, chances of arrhythmia, they are more. There occurs increased intraocular pressure because of the fasciculations or the contractions of the myofibrils or the dilatation of the choroidal blood vessels. Then again, increased intragastric pressure because of the fasciculations. After succinylcholine, many patients, they complain of a muscle pain. It is because there is a soreness, again because of the fasciculation or the unsynchronized contractions of the adjacent muscle fiber just before the onset of paralysis. And very important side effects is a malignant hyperthermia in a susceptible individuals where there is a genetic abnormality of the receptor called as the rhinodine receptors present on the smooth muscle sarcoplasmic reticulum. The calcium pouring is excessive and it may produce the high grade temperature, a genetic disorder. But if the patient is having this type of disorder, they may have the complications of very high temperature, and again it is an emergency, and that's why succinylcholine, it should be used very cautiously. What are the uses of these drugs? These drugs, they are mainly used to assist the surgery during anesthesia. Why? Because during operation, we need that the muscles, they should be completely relaxed, so that with a small incision on the abdomen, one can approach the abdominal cavity easily and one can operate the one should have a better operative conditions. Another important thing is that if we use the skeletal muscle relaxant along with anesthetics, we require smaller doses of anesthesia, which can decrease the complication, which can decrease the hazard of anesthesia, and the low dose of anesthesia will be required, and this will also help in a control of anesthesia. Another use, when we apply the ventilator to the critically ill patient, the diaphragm should be well paralyzed. If diaphragm is well paralyzed, then the machine can synchronize with the inspiration and the expiration, and there will be a better oxygenation. Sometimes in some epileptic condition where patient is quite resistant to the anti-epileptic drug, the ultimate, or you can say the topmost drug for the control of convulsions is the skeletal muscle relaxant. While giving the electroconvulsive treatment, we apply electric current to the parietal region, and as soon as the ECT is given, there occurs a violent contractions of the skeletal muscle, which may produce the fracture of the bone. To avoid that, initially or before ECT, one should give the skeletal muscle relaxant. Usually we use the succinylcholine intravenously. In variety of procedures, small or short procedure like esophagoscopy, bronchoscopy, these drugs, they are quite helpful. There is another category of the drug which act as a muscle relaxant, but they act centrally. They are called as a central muscle relaxant. While learning these drugs, these two terminologies should be understood: spasticity and the muscle spasm. These are the conditions which arises because of the upper motor neuron disease. And that's why there occurs excessive contraction, which may decrease the power of the muscle, which may produce the atrophy of the muscle, which may produce the loss of function of the muscle. And of course, it might be associated with the pain. To relieve of all this complaint, one can use the muscle relaxants which act centrally, and we are having a number of drugs in our hand which act as a central muscle relaxants. These are the few conditions where we need this type of drug. Number of CNS conditions where this type of complication may arise: muscle spasm, muscle spasticity. So majority of the drugs, they belong to the mefensin group. Mefensin, carisoprodol, chlorzoxazone, chlormazanone, methocarbamol. These are the agents which act on a spinal cord. They inhibit the polysynaptic reflex into the spinal arc. Thus, the excessive contraction can be inhibited. So that is the mefensin group which acts mainly on the spinal reflex arc. Another group is the benzodiazepine. They are the sedative hypnotic agents. Here, diazepam, lorazepam, they act on a GABA receptors and they produces the muscle relaxation. There is GABA derivatives like baclofen and the thiocolchicoside mimic the GABA action and they relax the smooth skeletal muscles. And tizanidine, it is a special drug which acts as an alpha-2 agonist in the central nervous system, and it blocks the contractions of the skeletal muscle. There is another class of the drug which directly act on the skeletal muscle. And in this category, the dantrolene sodium is used therapeutically, and quinine is also having some action. With dantrolene sodium, it is a special drug that it acts on the spinal reflex as well as exactly at the actin and the myosin site. Here, dantrolene it reduces the calcium release from the muscle cell. In the muscle, there are sarcoplasmic reticulum, or you can say the synaptic vesicles, which consist of the calcium. And this pouring of this calcium is controlled by one receptor called as the ryanodine receptor. The dantrolene block these ryanodine receptors. It uncouples the excitation and contraction of the skeletal muscle fibers. Thus, as the calcium is not available, it can decrease the actin-myosin interaction, and thus it acts directly as a muscle fiber relaxant. It is quite helpful not only for the muscle relaxation, but also for the treatment of a malignant hyperthermia, because it is mainly because of this excessive release of the calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is blocked by blocking the ryanodine receptor action. So dantrolene is used in a muscle spasticity, in the malignant hyperthermia, as well as to decrease the spasticity and the muscle spasm. There are some other drugs like cyproheptadine, act with the D2 receptors, cannabinoids with mu receptors, Orphanedrine, quite short acting. Gabapentin, which possibly helpful in the spinal cord injury or the multiple sclerosis. Thank you. If any questions in your mind, you can convey on the WhatsApp group or the email. My email is, I will give you on a WhatsApp site. Thank you.